10 past here in Moscow, the Syrian army has gained back control of a major airbase in the north of the country that had been besieged by Islamic State for more than 2 years. The airbase is located to the east of the city Aleppo. It's reported that 200 Syrian soldiers had been trapped inside, fighting off ISIL attacks. And let's show you some pictures of the facility from more than 2 years ago when jihadists first stormed the site. Now, recapturing the facility is the biggest breakthrough in the fight against terrorists in Syria since the beginning of the Russian air campaign there. NRT's Murad Gazdiev filed the following report from the Russian airbase in Latakia.
The number of combat sorties carried out by the Russian Air Force has actually gone down just a little bit over the past 3 days. They say they're focusing now on target acquisition, finding out where jihadists are hiding using spy aircraft, satellites, drones. However, the number of terror targets hit during each sortie has actually gone up on average. They're now hitting 3 terror targets per flight, which may sound confusing, but when a Russian jet takes off from here, it's usually carrying more than 1 bomb, and once it gets to the target, if 1 bomb does the job, the pilot may then go around looking for or hitting secondary, tertiary targets, which this is also somewhat of a new development, which are being sourced more and more from the moderate Syrian opposition. Here's another example for you. The Russian Air Force recently hit a Jabhat al-Nusra, or Al-Qaeda in Syria, weapons warehouse in Homs province. That warehouse served to arm and equip newly arriving jihadists, foreigners who have come to fight in Syria. The coordinates for that warehouse were apparently given to the Russian Air Force, provided to the Russian Air Force by moderate Syrian rebels, showing that their cooperation is already bearing fruit.
It's not just intelligence sharing where Russia is trying to cooperate with the moderate rebels. Last week, representatives from the Syrian government and the Syrian opposition were invited for talks here in Moscow. Now, the meeting is yet to take place. However, Washington very quickly denounced the entire idea.
We believe there's a time and a place for everything. There'll be a time and place when the opposition groups will be represented. We just don't think we're there yet. We think it's premature.
This is not that. This is a meeting that the Russians are going to host.
We think it's
Oh, you don't? You think the Russians should not invite Syrians to Moscow?
We think that it is premature to have that meeting. We think that there is a place for the Syrian opposition and a time for the Syrian opposition to gather to have those conversations. We think it's premature now.
Can I just ask, why is any of your business? Why do you oppose Russia inviting Syrian opposition figures to a meeting in Moscow, in Russia? Why?
We think it's premature. We think it's premature before the Vienna group meets again. But we do think it's premature to have those conversations when the post-Vienna work is still going on.
We spoke to a retired U.S. general with military contacts among the Western-backed Syrian opposition. He says Washington could have easily taken steps to mediate the Syrian crisis a very long time ago.
It's hard to tell exactly where they're coming from. I was inside Syria in 2013, and I vetted out. I went inside and vetted the different groups out, and I brought that information back to our government. So to say it's premature, we've had an opportunity in the United States to do something about this for almost 3 years now, and nothing has moved forward. So to say it's premature is completely naive and not credible, in my opinion. I also provided the Russians with the names of those individuals and more individuals if they would like them. And I said that the meeting can be conducted in Paris, can be conducted in Moscow or Vienna, and I will provide the names of the reputable, credible Syrian opposition leaders.
Meantime, some within the U.S. military are pushing for a ground operation in Syria. The Air Force Secretary says air power is not enough because it's not able to occupy and govern territories, and that's why boots must go on the ground. Details online. Now, thousands of rival demonstrators have gathered in front of the Portuguese parliament. They took to the streets after the centre-right government was forced to resign following a vote of no confidence from the newly formed leftist coalition. Pro- and anti-government protesters, divided by barriers and dozens of police vans, waved flags and chanted slogans. resignation of the government comes less than 2 weeks after it was sworn in. And the vote of no confidence was pushed forward by an unprecedented anti-austerity alliance formed by the Socialist and Communist parties and the left bloc. The coalition handed the leftists a majority in the Portuguese parliament and therefore the ability to vote down the government's austerity proposals. We spoke to Marisa Matias, a European MEP for the left bloc. She believes Portugal now has a real chance for an alternative.
Today what we saw was this majority of the opposition left parties to vote against the coalition of the right-wing coalition, which put into place the huge package of austerity over the last years. And so there's a possibility of having an alternative government in Portugal with the support of the left forces.
Portugal is just the most recent example of the rise of leftist parties across Europe. The anti-austerity Syriza party in Greece came to power in January, locking its leader Alexis Tsipras in a fierce battle with EU creditors over the country's budget. Not just Greece, though, also in Spain, the Podemos party, founded less than 2 years ago, has witnessed a sharp rise in popularity due to its anti-austerity agenda. And now the Portuguese leftists have joined the club. It seems a clear message is being sent to Brussels. Marisa Matias went on to say the left movement is rising up against the EU's so-called blackmailing.
The left parties in Portugal are much against the way Brussels has been running the politics around Europe, and mainly all the blackmail and all the impositions which have been made towards the southern countries and the peripheral countries like Portugal, with troika programs, with austerity, with a lot of people have to leave the country because they don't have jobs there. And a lot of these rules came from Brussels. So there's an opposition to this imposition of Brussels against the democratic will of the people in Portugal.
Well, it's RT International live from Moscow. A lot of people are on Facebook these days, but if you're not, guess what? You can still be tracked. The story coming your way.